Well, I've been asked a lot about my response to the government's decision on duck hunting. Here's what I've had to say. Last week, the government announced its response to the 2023 report of the Select Committee into duck hunting here in Victoria, and that response will allow the recreational hunting of native birds to continue in Victoria. As Chair of the Select Committee, many have reached out seeking my response to the decision of the government, and I thought this contribution was the best way to put my response on the public record. I'm disappointed by the government's decision. As the committee's final report recommended, I believe that native duck hunting should end. In saying that, I did come to the 2023 inquiry and the committee with no fixed view. On the committee, I was persuaded by the environmental science that the long-term trends show native bird populations are in decline, despite the occasional bumper year. And two bird species that were once routinely hunted are now threatened species and protected. I interrogated the regulatory framework and found the compliance and enforcement system severely wanting. The Game Management Authority has a checkered past as an effective regulator. Things have improved, but there's a long way to go. The GMA's focus is often on keeping public order between hunters and animal welfare activists rather than on checking compliance with hunting regulations. And in 2022, the committee was told that only 11% of hunters had a licence check from the GMA and only 9% of bags were examined. I came to the view that by its nature and under the way that wildlife game regulations operate, bird hunting is exclusionary. The rules operate to exclude non-hunters from vast tracts of public land during the hunting season in a way that, for example, fishing or boating simply do not. But these are my views, and others have different views. And lots of Victorians, the committee inquiry showed us, are very passionate about this issue. Respectful debate, even with disagreement, is healthy for our democracy. In making the announcement of the government's response last week, Minister Dimopoulos said that the government had accepted that Victorians should be able to hunt native birds. The government response also acknowledged that the current regulatory and enforcement rules weren't good enough. The government accepted 7 of the 8 recommendations made by the committee to improve hunter behaviour and strengthen compliance and enforcement. And beyond the recommendations, the report of the committee made a series of findings about ways to improve the current regulatory framework, including by introducing new hunter proficiency tests so that hunters actually have to demonstrate that they know how to shoot, and by making regular retesting of the waterfowl identification test so that hunters know what birds they're allowed to shoot. These are new requirements. These will be new requirements for hunters, and I welcome these moves. They're necessary. Whether they're sufficient is the next test for the hunting community, because that's where the future of this issue now rests, in the hands of game hunters, their associations and the Game Management Authority. Their behaviour and their actions will now demonstrate whether they are worthy of the faith that the government has shown in them. Sporting Shooters Association told the inquiry that no threatened bird species should be mistakenly shot by hunters. Not one. And Field and Game Australia gave similar evidence. On how to improve hunter compliance with the rules, Gary Howard, the caretaker of Field and Game's private wetland in Sale, said, and I quote, "Peer pressure is probably the biggest factor that can be brought to bear on hunters who are doing the wrong thing." So these, President, are now the thresholds for acceptable hunter behaviour. These are the standards that must be met. The committee's report said that the 2023 season was arguably the most scrutinised on record, and yet we found that infractions against hunting regulations still occurred. The eyes of many will be on hunters in 2024 and beyond.